Hi, I'm Melissa Perkins. This is my presentation for Module 8 of AEP 855, and the title is Leading with a Moral Compass. So I'll begin by discussing the summary of the readings and the videos that we had for this course. The first is Bucaro, Having a Moral Compass. Bucaro is a theologist that teaches how to have a moral compass. His principles include putting people first in decision-making, respect individual dignity, never interfere with one's self-esteem, treating everyone fairly, always playing by the same rules. So that's definitely something that came from my background as well, and being honest. He often looks to history, and he gave a couple examples of some hobbies of his in studying history. One thing that really resonated with me that I liked, he gave a quote of an Indian leader from years ago that we can learn from. Live your life so that when you sing your death song, you will die like a hero who was going home with no shame to meet the Creator and his family. I really like that quote, and it goes to show that you can't just learn from those that are surrounding you today, but you can look to history to find some great examples of terrific leaders. Another video file that we looked at was from Lee. Lee, he is, my understanding from the videos, that he's from a legal firm and discusses the importance of having a moral compass. A definite right and wrong, and acting with an integrity reflex when you are a leader. Talks about the importance that you must have a moral compass with an absolute north. And that's kind of despite the cultural pressures that sometimes give you justification to kind of have no definition or no one exact north, and gives you the idea that there is some flexibility, but there always should be a defined absolute right answer. Another summary is from McCombs, The Concepts Unwrapped of Moral Emotions. They had some great visual aids in this presentation that I really liked. He believes that most judgments and actions are based on emotions and intuitions. He gave several examples of many different types of emotions, and these include self-conscious emotions like guilt, shame, and embarrassment. Also condemning emotions, contempt, anger, and disgust. Praising emotions, gratitude, or giving you a moral elevation. And suffering emotions, sympathy, compassion, and empathy. Moral emotions generally point us in the direction of right, but emotions are far from infallible. You can use rationalization to deceive others, seeing immoral actions as not that bad, or our emotional reactions tend to beat the logical thoughts to the punch. So we really need to practice mindfulness so that natural intuition in that moment's notice when you need to make a decision is the right one, not an emotional reaction. Another author was Mitz, Set Your Moral Compass True North. This is from a blog. Mitz from, I have a year wrong there, sorry about that, from 2018 says, when your moral compass is headed north, you will know you will know you are on the right path to ethical decision making. He states that one first must start by having our heart in the right place, considering the needs of others. And I really like that, being selfless, not selfish. And I think that's an easy thing that we all were taught, but it's a perfect thing to try to remember always. We can go the right direction by living life of integrity, simply going back to what we hopefully all learned is the golden rule. And that's one of my true norths, and you'll see that on my pictorial representation of myself later on. Mitz believes that we know whether our actions are right or wrong by applying ethical decision-making methods such as the rights theory, that obligates us to respect the rights of others and live up to our obligations toward them. Also to evaluate the possible benefits and harms of alternate courses of actions. And we saw that some when we made our kind of decision trees and plots to say, if this, then what else could happen. And we kind of plotted those out by different challenging discussions that we could all have as educational leaders. Mitz also believes that we should ask whether our actions are just, fair, and treat others equally. We should act with honesty, empathy, respectfulness, integrity, and responsibility. And he concludes that we should strive to improve the lives of others regardless of their preferences, and because that's how we build a moral society to live by. Orchard gave a writing on the moral compass. Orchard defines moral compass as the mental processes that point a person in a particular direction in life. He discusses morality as the basis of character and something wrapped around ethics, conduct based on what is right and wrong. And he ultimately questions, and I really like this, how can it be possible to construct a moral compass that can give the same north reading for all members of society when the mainstream belief of the population is that knowledge is endlessly evolving, that actions and beliefs must by necessity be fluid and adaptable to today's changing cultural popular culture. So he's saying, with everything saying that, we need to evolve and change, how can there be one north all the time? He discusses that even religion does not give a uniform moral north, as there is no agreed basis for morality. And finally, he concludes that there will not be an absolute right and wrong until society wants one, and that morality ultimately interferes with one's lifestyle, so will not demand the moral compass of north. So that gives me a little bit of depressing thoughts, thinking that, if you want to define one crisp black and white north, that's maybe something that we'll never, ever achieve. There's a lot of gray areas, but you need to define as close as you can the right north for you to morally live by and ethically live by. And Wood discusses our moral compass in a writing. Our moral compass, Wood says, is that we all have a moral compass, uniquely our own, but we sometimes forget to use it to make decisions. He defines a moral compass as a set of personal values that guide our decision making, and these values reside in our hearts and have been formed over a lifetime. But really, we may have a lot of values, but we only have 3 to 5 core values, unique to our own, like integrity, family, fairness, personal responsibility, and kindness. We need to read our moral compass. Then he emphasizes the need to actually use it. Wood discusses key reasons when leaders read but don't use their moral compass, including they believe the ethical choice would have difficult or challenging short-term side effects. It might create more work for them if they went down that ethical path or moral path. They believe their ethical choice is in conflict with what the organization or his or her supervisor wants, which can be very challenging. And they choose to violate their values because of the beliefs, because of the benefits of the opposite decision. So really thinking of yourself rather than the bigger picture. He believes it's helpful to make important decisions by following a outline that he provides, and it's very extensive here. I've just hit the high points. Analyze the consequences or the side effects of the decision, analyze the actions, and then make a decision. So here I'd like to show a little bit about my moral compass. I'll change that view just a little bit. And so here it's shown as, the compass showing integrity, compassion, responsibility. And it's showing and forgiveness, and it's showing a true north pointed up. One of the big things that's very important to me is the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I don't know whether I learned this in church or in my family at home, but it's probably the earliest memory I have from, I don't know, as early as I can remember in my childhood is, you learn the golden rule, and you always treat people the way you want to be treated. And a picture shown here is of my mother, and my mother is still living. She'll turn 81 here in a few days. And she's always lived by this rule. I don't remember one time ever recalling that she did not live by this rule or treat everybody the way she wanted to be treated. And it just became, it was always second nature. She never questioned that. My mom and dad got divorced when I was 6. My dad was an alcoholic and only died a few years ago. And so he was a good guy, but wasn't around us all the time. My mom had very high moral standards, but she was also human. But she taught us the difference between right and wrong, and always lived by those. Also close to me and probably spending equal amounts of time was her mom. And she's passed away in 1990. So I have a representation there. Again, she always had high moral standards or ethical standards of herself and others. And she taught us to never take anything that didn't belong to you, not even a pen. And I heard her say that many times because it was what she was taught. You never take, even if it has a 1-cent value, you never take anything that's not your own. And of course, the golden rule is followed. I think it's very important to continue with having that very strong moral compass that we take from our past. I'll get into, church or community. I came from the Midwest, grew up in El Dorado. So that community, the church, the family. And why is that? Because it's very important in your own life. My 2 girls are shown here, and it's also important in your work life to have that same moral compass, especially as a leader. I've been managing others for 20 some years, and I don't always understand, even when I was an individual contributor prior to graduate school, those relationships I was forming and actions that I was making at that time. A lot of those people, I'm still in the same profession as of when I took a work hiatus a year ago, and that's drug development in the pharmaceutical world. But the big pharma industry is pretty small, and I run into the same people that I worked with in the early 90s at conferences all the time. And I always wonder, well, good thing that I was nice to everybody, because, these are friends that I had no idea that I'd be running into and interacting with over these decades. I guess a few other things here is mentoring others. I talk about community, but when, I went to school for many different degrees, and I always had great mentors that provided right and wrong, scientific integrity, and just how to treat others, and always help people along the way. And I had great people helping me along the way, and have tried to give back as an advisor or a mentor to young scientists and engineers over the decades. So I had that in college, primarily at KU, but other internship opportunities in Switzerland, overseas, and then throughout my work career in the pharmaceutical industry. So the references are shown here and are listed. The addendum I'll next go through. So finally, the addendum is shown here, and the standard correlation. The resources provided increased my content knowledge by reminding me that everybody has a moral compass, but each is unique based on our own individual life path and influences. we have to constantly monitor whether we are following a true north that several of the authors discuss, despite outside pressures that may seem to justify actions otherwise. It's relevant because it reminded me of the importance of every